So for both of you, how do you hope to carry on the legacy of that movie?
I hope we're carrying on the legacy of the movie, but by continuing the spirit and the joy that's represented in that film.
First of all, of course, like the original A League of Their Own movie, this show shines a light on women's empowerment at a time when women weren't very empowered. So, Abby, to start, as co creator, what inspired you to retell this story?
Yeah, I think, even from the initial conversations that Will Graham and I had about embarking on this, the film is so iconic, and we both agreed it does not need to be remade. And if we're going to do it, we really want to be focusing on the stories that were not told. And whether they were not able to be told in 1992 or the limitations of the film real estate, and now we have all this time, we really wanted to focus on the generation of women who are playing baseball in 1943 and really expand the lens and focus on them.
So, Chanté, your character Max has a much longer and more difficult road to playing baseball. Can you talk about how her journey of overcoming adversity as a Black woman and how that contributes to the overall message of the show?
Yeah, I mean, Max is fighting a war on two fronts, being a Black woman and a Black queer woman during this time period. And so just making sure that she was properly represented, I think, in an authentic way. Of course, we all want to see Max join the Peaches in the first episode with everyone else, but that's not authentic to the time period. And we wanted to, and that was important, to make sure that we are telling the stories in a very real way. And so Max's journey does take a little longer, but I also feel like there's more of a reward. When Max finally gets that moment, everyone is gonna feel it. And so, yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, and going off of that, in the show, we see Carson and Max in separate queer relationships. Can you both speak on the importance of not just representing members of the LGBTQ plus community, but also including the very complicated reality of being in a relationship during this time period?
Yeah, I think, Carson and Max are really the hinge of the show, and they're really bonded through baseball, the pitcher-catcher dynamic, but they're really bonded through queerness. And I think their part of each of their arcs is really finding their queer communities. And, part of that is finding each other and just knowing you're less alone. And they both end up in a slightly different ways, really realizing that like the world is way bigger, and I'm not alone. And also with that, I think they both see the dangers of being queer in 1943 and what the rules are of doing that, and limitations, and it's and the stakes and the risks. And so we're seeing both of those simultaneously. And I think that was really important, how we're showing those differences and those similarities in both the characters' experiences.
Yeah, I mean, that's Max and Carson's first interaction we see is when Max kind of catches Carson like in the storage room with Greta. And so that is, queerness is the establishing moment of their relationship. And so to be able to go through this journey together, I think is really important and special, because at some point in their journeys, they feel like they're the only people that they can talk to. They're the only people that can understand what they're going through internally when it relates to their queerness. And so, yeah, I think that the bond that they build off of that is really beautiful.
Yes, definitely. And finally, it's been 30 years since the original A League of Their Own was released. So for both of you, how do you hope to carry on the legacy of that movie?
I hope we're carrying on the legacy of the movie, but by continuing the spirit and the joy that's represented in that film. But I think it's more about opening it up a little bit
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, the movie needs no help with carrying its own legacy. Yeah. It's been 30 years and people still talk about how it's their absolute favorite movie, as it should be. And so what we're doing is just expanding that world and creating our own legacy that we hope that we can uphold just as well as they do.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for your time today. Congrats on the show, and I wish you both the best.
Thank you.